Science of Canada.
Welcome back, everyone. 14 after the hour, and today in Behind the Headlines, we're going to tell you how a cop walks after a search finds a large amount of marijuana in his home. This could be part of our continuing investigation and how there's a different justice system for the police versus the justice system for the rest of us. Because what do you suppose happens if you went and picked up a 5-pound package of pot from the UPS store, then months later, cops with a search warrant show up and find a large amount of marijuana in your home? And then, what do you suppose happens if you told them the pot wasn't for you and you weren't going to sell it to anyone else, but the pot was for your dog? Yeah, well, if you're Richmond, California police officer Joe Avila, you get 3 months paid vacation and no criminal charges. The case begins before Thanksgiving of 2013. A UPS store employee called the Richmond police about a 5-pound package suspected to be marijuana. Officer Avila took the package and sent word to dispatch that he'd be filing the formal report later. That report never got filed, and that 5 pounds of weed never made it to the police evidence locker. In January of 2014, Internal Affairs began looking into Officer Avila for a pattern of not filing timely police reports. Out of 37 non-report incidents, the UPS store pot stood out. The investigation continued for 9 more months when on September 23rd of 2014, a search warrant was issued for Officer Avila's home with the, quote, belief and opinion that Richmond Police Officer Joe Avila intentionally collected drug evidence from the Richmond UPS store on 11/25/13 and kept for his personal use or use for sale, end quote. That's on the search warrant. But Officer Avila, who's a 17-year police veteran and a canine handler, had an excuse. Officer Avila told the police searching his home that he used 2 pounds of the marijuana from the UPS store to train his canine partner Bosco at home in February. He also said there might be more marijuana in the trunk of his police car or at his house. Wait a minute. Wasn't it 5 pounds that he took from the UPS store? Ah, good catch, dear listener. You'll also be interested to read that the 9/23/14 search warrant turned up, quote, a large amount of marijuana, end quote. No specific weight mentioned. Quote, in plastic bags, end quote. Plural, in Officer Avila's home. Richmond police, like all police departments, have strict protocol regarding the chain of evidence. Filing a report as soon as possible is required so officers' memories don't fade. Placing contraband in the evidence locker is mandatory. Procedures exist for procuring and weighing drug evidence for the training of drug-sniffing dogs, and they don't involve swiping unweighed drug evidence from crimes that canine officers don't report. Officer Avila was clearly in violation of all of these standards. But Detective Hector Esparza, the president of the Richmond Police Officers Association, aka the Police Union, said, quote, I think administratively there might have been mistakes. There's no criminal element in this whatsoever. In my opinion, it's a purely administrative matter. Canine officers use narcotics for training their dogs. It's how they keep them up to speed, end quote. No crime here. No big deal. Nothing to see here. Officer Avila was placed on paid administrative leave in September as the investigation continued. Today, the Contra Costa Times reports that the county district attorney, Mark A. Peterson, won't be filing charges against Officer Avila. According to Robin Lepetsky, the county's chief public defender, there just isn't enough evidence to get a conviction. Officer Avila seems to have violated numerous police protocols, but not the law, apparently. Possession of 5 pounds of marijuana, and especially if you have it in separate bags, that is intent to sell. And that's a felony in the state of California, punishable by 16 months to 3 years in prison. In addition, the vehicle used to transport the marijuana and the home used to store it in are subject to asset forfeiture. And when the cops come to serve the search warrant over the 5 pounds of pot in your home, They might even break down your door and shoot your dog. Unless you're a cop. So we're supposed to believe that this cop picked up 5 pounds of evidence that was called in from a UPS store. Now, it wasn't being ordered by Officer Avila. He was called, he was the police officer sent to the UPS store when they had found someone else was getting weed shipped through the UPS store. He shows up and picks up the 5 pounds and then never reports it, never books it. And we're supposed to believe that he was just doing that so he could have some extra weed to train his drug-sniffing dog, Bosco. He has broken police protocol. He lied to the investigators when they came to his place and they wanted to find out where the weed was, saying he didn't know if it was in the trunk or if it's in the house or where it might have been. And there's no repercussions for this guy. Now, one of the articles I read did mention that it's questionable as to whether or not he'll be able to return to the police force. But that should point out return to that police force, because chances are he'll probably get hired again somewhere else.